Welcome, amazing students. Welcome to the show. My name is Mr. Viteri. I'm very happy to be here. And yay, it's Friday. Let's get to it. Just wait for this computer to load. So, we're talking all about weather and climate. We need to know all the different moving parts when associating this weather or climate. Um, Remember how we talked about the latitude of the Earth, and we were talking about the 0 degrees at the equator, 30, 60, and 90. Those are very important divisions because we can correlate certain wind patterns that associate with that. Now, this picture might seem a little weird, but where would the United States fall under? Hopefully, you could understand that the United States would fall around 30 to 60, and parts of Canada would be in 30 to 60 as well. And then all the way at the top, 60 to 90, we're talking about little parts of Alaska and the North Pole. Now, why is that important? Well, directionality of the winds are pretty important. So let's just say Ohio, which is a state that is to the left of us, to the west of us, if it's spewing a lot of pollution due to the westerlies, because we live in 30 to 60 degrees, that pollution that's spewed into the atmosphere could actually get pushed towards us. So that's pretty interesting when you know that. Okay. Another thing to this is quite interesting is let's say if we were going to fly down to California, would it be smart or more efficient to actually go against the wind? Or should we go a little bit south and then come up this way and then go up to this way? So wind patterns are pretty important. These are typically going to tell us how storms are going to travel. And we could associate that with global images, how fast they're traveling as well. And so typically when we know something's going to hit Florida, which is closer to perhaps the higher numbers of 29, 28. We know it's coming from that ocean, and it was like, ooh. And then typically sometimes that storm will come up and then veer off as we get to North Carolina, and sometimes we get hit over here. But knowing the direction of the wind is quite important. Now, what in the world is wind? First off, um, I hate to use bathroom humor, but it's always great in this analogy, so I'm just going to do it. When someone passes gas, they create wind. How do you create wind? Wind is created by a change in air pressure. So, if someone passes gas, there's more pressure inside that person than outside. That release of that pressure transfers that gas from one location to another location. This always happens when someone typically opens a window. Okay? And hold on to your hats. I hope you have your helmets on. When you open a window, the pressure inside the building may be different from the pressure outside the building. Well, what can determine air pressure? The temperature of that air. If the temperature of that air is, let's say, colder inside and hotter outside, cold air is heavier, has more pressure. As I open that window, that cold air is going to go outside, and that hot air is going to slip under or slip on top of it, rather. Right. So in the summertime, when I have my air conditioning blasting, and if you come over to my house, which you wouldn't, but if someone came over to my house and they leave that door open, all my cold air is trying to get out because it's heavy, and all that hot air is trying to come in because that I created wind. All right. Now ask me why I'm big mad. I'm going to tell you why I'm big mad. All these teachers in the summertime think it's better to open the windows in like late June. And they say, "Oh, we can get a breeze." Now, with the information I just told you, let's try to really think about this. Now, I would open the window if it was cooler outside. But if it's hotter outside and I open a window, what am I doing? I'm actually getting rid of my cold air and bringing in this hot air. So I get so upset when when teachers, oh, we got to open the windows just because it's summertime, like just because it's hot out. No, if it's hotter outside, keep the window closed. If it's and you want to be cooler, of course, right? Like it's nice to open a window maybe in fall and you want to cool your room off a little bit, but you have to understand how wind works. If it's hotter outside, now you just open the window, you've allowed all this humidity get in, and now your classroom is hot and sticky. You may get a little wind, okay? You might get a little breeze every 15 to 20 minutes, but primarily you just all the air conditioners that were blasting in the new side of the building or whatever, all of those that tried to take out the moisture of the air, you just allowed all that moisture to get in the air. It aggravates me. And I talk to teachers and they're like, nah, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. I'm just saying, use your brain. Use your brain. Okay? Now, another thing is you have to know about wind is that how does it get warmer or hotter and so on and so forth. Okay? And of course, I'm going off on tangents like I always do. Okay, but how do we have these temperature differences in air? Well, it's the sun and the angle at which the Earth is at currently. So it's also what we call the Coriolis effect. Okay, so imagine this: the sun is beating down on planet Earth. And as it's beating down, it's warming the air, it's warming the ocean, it's warming the ground. When it warms the air, hot air is going to rise. So air is constantly rising. However, check this out. The Earth is spinning. So because the Earth is spinning, there's an effect on the air. All right? And that effect is the Coriolis effect. So that's what gives us these curves in planet Earth. So you think about it, if the Earth is rotating, I don't know if this is going to be opposite for you, but this way, this creates the air on top of it in the center between 0 and 30 north, 0 and 30 south to go this way. Once you memorize that this Earth is, the air is going this way, knowing the directionality of the rest of the arrows is quite easy. You just make these little arrows. If you made these arrows, then you put other arrows on the top of it, and then remember that these arrows hit each other. So then we'll just reverse it. So it's here, we carry it on, it's like an S, this is like a reverse S, and then these hit each other. And that's how I remember it. Okay. So hot air rises, but because of the planet's rotation, that actually spins. And so that kind of explains, like if you ever saw that movie, The Perfect Storm, or hurricanes, or things like that, that these currents are circular in motion. Okay. And that's because of the Coriolis effect. In school, typically what I would do, it's so weird. I would take a student and we would hold hands and we'd start going in a circle very, very quickly. And then when I felt confident enough that we were going fast enough, I would tell them to spit a spitball at my face. And if we're going fast enough, because of the Coriolis effect, the spitball will actually curve. And to this date, I think I've done this 15 years now, and I've never got hit in the face with a spitball. Kids really want to hit me in the face with a spitball. I think, Stephanie, I'm pretty sure it was your brother, Steven, that spit in my face because he had good footwork. And then there was another student. His name will come in a second. Sukhmeet also tried to spit in my face. He has great footwork last year. So anyhow, this is the Coriolis effect. You're going to need to know the directionality of the winds. Why is that important? Because if there was pollution in a certain way, in the west of us, you should know that it's traveling to the east. Okay, so it's very important to care about the environmental standards of our entire planet, but more importantly, the states to the east, to the west of us. Now, a funny thing is that winds are also named after the direction that they're coming from. So the east is the right side, but this is actually pointing to the left. That's because the wind is coming from the east. This is called westerlies, and it's pointing to the right side, but it's coming from the west. And then once again, we got the polar easterlies actually coming from the east. So winds are called from the direction where they're coming from, not necessarily where they're going. So here we have the northeast trade winds, the westerlies, and the polar easterlies. Over here we have the southeast trade winds, the westerlies and the easterlies, all divided by those 30 degrees in latitude. All right. There's some fancy vocabulary that we need to know. These are called the horse lats, which are 30 degrees, both north and south. And then at the equator, this is called the doldrums. Okay, the doldrums. The doldrums. And surprisingly, there's not a lot of wind at the doldrums because you can think of it as that's the area of just the hot air is rising to the top. Now, the trade winds are called the trade winds because they are dependable. And back in the day when we used to trade by boat, we could say it was almost like FedEx. Well, we're going to send some cinnamon from India to, let's just say, the United States, and that's going to take about 9 days. Well, we can calculate that because the trade winds are so dependable. However, if you ever got stuck in the doldrums, your boat would not even be moving. I believe there's a scene in Pirates of the Caribbean where they're stuck in the doldrums, where there's just no wind. And surprisingly, at the horse lats, that's also a case if you're stuck in the middle of the horse lats. And I believe they started throwing the horses overboard because they know the horses drink a lot of water. And if they're going to be stuck in an area, the horses are going to die anyway. Might as well just get rid of them. And that's why I think the horse lats are called the horse lats. So the doldrums, as well as the horse lats, there's pretty much no wind whatsoever. Last analogy for wind, and that's going to be I don't know if you saw that beautiful movie, Snakes on a Plane. It's a documentary film. I don't know if it's rated R. Don't watch it. But I know there's a scene where, like, someone shoots a window out, or if you're in an airplane and someone shoots a window out, why is everything getting sucked out of the airplane? Think about it. There's a difference in pressure. The airplane is pressurized so you won't explode, so you won't lose your hearing or anything like that. As you go higher in the atmosphere, there's going to be less pressure. So when you open that window, everything's going to try to equalize and things get sucked out in that action. All right. So hopefully you know a little bit more about wind. Let's try to cover one more slide. All right. So here's another vision. Imagine that planet rotating to the right. So we have these winds going here, these winds going here, and these winds coming back. Some more vocabulary is that this is called the intertropical convergence zone. So intertropical, you know, it's next to the equator. Convergence zone, this is where the north and the south meet, converge. Right? This is called a Hadley cell from 0 to 30, a Ferrel cell from 30 to 60, and a polar cell from 60 to 90. All right. This vocabulary, if you draw a picture, that would possibly be the best way to remember these things. All right. And we'll leave on the greenhouse effect. Okay. Like we were discussing before, the greenhouse effect is going to be separate, but kind of separate from the ozone layer. But just imagine this. Sunlight penetrates through. And then the sunlight, some of that sunlight tries to escape. Well, what type of sunlight that's causing all this heat is specifically the infrared radiation. That sunlight's going to come through. And then most of it wants to bounce out to outer space. However, it hits a layer of gases, which I think is like a blanket, if you will. Because a blanket keeps like the heat in. Now, if that blanket is too thick, then too much heat gets in, and our temperature, our global temperature, global warming occurs. Now, what are those gases? Well, I've told you water is one of those gases, and that is the most abundant greenhouse gas, but we don't necessarily count that towards global warming because we can't get rid of water. We don't want to get rid of water. If we got rid of water, we'd be getting rid of ourselves. So what are the main contributors to global greenhouse effect? It's going to be carbon dioxide, methane, and here's where I'm going to throw you up and I'm going to bring you back. Also chlorofluorocarbons. Chlorofluorocarbons are a greenhouse gas. Chlorofluorocarbons destroy ozone, but that's a different type of radiation. Keep these things different, Okay. So those are three greenhouse gases that have a greenhouse potential greater than one. When I say greater than one, what I'm really saying is carbon dioxide is what's considered to have a greenhouse potential of one. So, what is stronger than one? What is stronger than carbon dioxide? You could say methane, you could say chlorofluorocarbons, and also nitrogen dioxide, which we haven't really spoke of yet, but we'll get to it once we cover more of the atmosphere or air pollution. All right, I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and I'll see you soon.